The NFL, Colin, like nothing surprises me with Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys, but this, I mean, my eyes popped out of my head. So there is now a report that even though Max Crosby's staying with the Raiders, the Cowboys tried so hard to land him, they made 3 different offers to the Raiders. Reminder, the Cowboys traded Micah Parsons. They didn't want to pay him. So a year later, or less than a year, maybe 8 months, they tried to get Max Crosby. Here are the reported offers. The Cowboys said, we'll give you the 20th pick and Osa Ugunwanza, I butchered his name,
D-line.
12th pick and the third round pick, 12th overall pick and a second. And the Raiders said, no, we want 2 firsts. Colin, Jerry Jones had Micah Parsons. Now he realized, oh, we need an edge rusher. You can't make this stuff up at this point, Colin. Come on.
Well, they got Rashawn Gary, who's not Max Crosby, but
No.
yeah, I'm surprised Dallas offered that. I mean, I think it's a great edge rusher draft, and Dallas is prized. You know, they have an opportunity to get one of the good edge rushers, and their defensive tackles are excellent. So I'm a little surprised by the story. Sometimes I feel like Jerry's kind of making it up based on a whim or a discussion. I kind of feel like he's kind of making it up. There's not a lot of long range planning.
Yeah.
It's more, how do I feel now? Well, who's the last guy I talked to? That's what it feels like to me.
And by the way, do you think Max Crosby would have been thrilled to go to Dallas? Because he wanted a contender. And last I checked, Dallas is not anything close to a contender. Now, you could argue Baltimore didn't make the playoffs, but they have Lamar Jackson. They're in the playoffs every year practically. Would he have been thrilled to go to Dallas?
Well, it's a huge brand, and Max is a likable guy, relatable guy. I think it would have been great for him, actually. I think he would have done really well there.
Yeah, I don't think you could say that they're not even close to being a contender. Listen, I'm talk about all the time. I understand Dallas Cowboys haven't even been to an NFC championship game, in like 30 years, but that offense was obviously legit. If you want to have the conversations of do you believe that Dak and everyone would have been great in the playoffs, etc., like that is all fair game because they obviously haven't shown to legitimately be great and win in the playoff game, in the playoffs. But I just setting that aside because you could say the same thing about Lamar Jackson then. I wouldn't say that they weren't even far. They just had a competent defense. And that's why, and I say this all the time, that's why I ripped Dallas with how they handled the Michael Parsons trade because you made smart moves offensively. You even made a smart hire with Schottenheimer that impressed and proved a lot of people wrong, but you did nothing to make that defense competent, and you did everything you could to make it incompetent. And it became a liability. And because it was a liability, you went nowhere. You didn't even make the playoffs. Whereas, if your defense was just competent and not a liability, you could have legitimately done that. You could have at least maybe made to an NFC, at a minimum make it to the NFC championship game. Like, it was definitely on the table for sure. So, and that is directly because of the decisions that they made. And this is where I laughed at the whole, well, we'll get rid of Micah, but now it's okay to get Max Crosby. And then when you see what they were willing to give up for Max, it's just like, no, see, this is proof of what I've been telling y'all. This is literally proof of what I'm saying. You're just doing nonsense. You're just throwing a typewriter against the wall. You're just throwing paint against the wall. You're just picking random. You're just like this and it's just like this is cause everybody. This is where I kept pushing back on Colin because Colin was like, oh, it was really smart for them to trade Micah, and it's just like that's not what they were trying to do. He wanted to keep Micah. And because he didn't have the foresight of wanting to trade Micah at the right time, it directly hurt him. Now he was trying to salvage it and they're like, well, hey, now we saved money and we got this and that, and it's just like now with the capital that you were looking to give up for Max Crosby, like it just none of it makes sense. No, and it just makes everything messy. Not to mention, if you just signed Micah, CD, and Dak when you were supposed to, you'd have all 3 of those players on more favorable contracts right now. That's just a timeline of contract. So that's just basic math. There's no speculation needed. There's no guesswork needed. If you didn't do the whole song and dance that you kept doing, all of these guys would be at a cheaper value. So that's what's so frustrating about the conversations that we have with the Cowboys. Also, I love how everyone said, oh, well, the Cowboys doctors rejected, they didn't pass Max Crosby either as evidence that the Baltimore Ravens did everything right, guys. They have all the scans ahead when they're making these trade offers and trying to figure this all out. Those doctors have access to all of this. The Cowboys doctors knew exactly what was going on with Max Crosby and yet they still were trying to get him and incredibly aggressively. That's weird, right? That's I don't know the math not math in there. So it's weird, right? Going all in for a Max Crosby, this is where these types of decisions, you have to figure out who are you as a team and what can you legitimately accomplish. You see the Rams being very aggressive because there's we can win a Super Bowl. We make a couple right moves in this off-season, no matter how much it costs, we can legitimately win a Super Bowl. Straight up. You have to figure out who the Cowboys are because if you're going to take a big swing, you have to understand is a Max Crosby the difference between winning and losing a Super Bowl. And if not, well then it becomes too big of a swing. And this is the problem with not knowing who Dak, CeeDee Lamb, Pickens, Schottenheimer, etc. are going to be in the playoffs. And this is the problem of the incompetency that they had off-season because they didn't get a playoff game. We didn't see them in the playoffs. We saw them in a game that they had to win and they still got rocked against Detroit. Those were got to have it moment and it wasn't very good. And you're oh, what if that was a playoff game now? So it just that's the thing that's frustrating because you don't even have this information now. What was Dak's last playoff game? 2023 and they got annihilated. And that was obviously different coaching staff before Dak got, one of his other injuries. And so it's now you're talking about years later, new coach, new coordinator, new receiver, new a lot of new and you're just how will this team look in the playoffs? And it's I have no idea. How will Shanamer look in the playoffs? I got no idea. I have no idea. You don't know where you're building from. Whereas a team like the Rams, they just saw themselves in the NFC Championship game. They know exactly who they are. They know exactly who Puka and Sean McVay and Stafford, etc. Blake Worm, Kyron Williams, and they know exactly what they have in the playoffs. They know exactly what they look like against a really important opponent, the Seattle Seahawks. So, they know exactly what they need. So, they know how to weigh all the pros and cons of the decisions. The Dallas Cowboys do not have that. They do not have that. And that's where you have to have the foresight then. That's where you have to have the vision. And that's where I kind of went on my my rant yesterday where I was talking about you ended up getting George Pickens for essentially nothing if you actually probably could have signed him to a longer-term deal for a pretty big discount. You could have used your leverage that seemingly no one else wanted him and that his career was legitimately trending down. But if you have the vision, if you have the understanding, man, Pittsburgh Steelers are a mess. They had no quarterback. We got Dak. I'm hiring Schottenheimer. I believe he's a great offensive coach. George Pickens is going to excel here. Yeah. Now you get him on a great contract before any of this. Now you're well, we don't know if we want to keep him. Well, we're going to franchise T you're just continuing to make things messy. You're making things harder for yourself. You're making things harder to not only navigate the process of building a team, but then you're also making things harder in terms of what do you actually need in this moment of time. What are you going to get out of the players that you actually have? So, this is where the Dallas Cowboys, it's kind of fascinating because we see this year after year where they're just oh, this team is actually pretty good. Also, this team is not good at all, Oh, this team can make a run in the playoffs. Also, this team's going to lose and it's going to be a really ugly playoff game. Oh, this team blows out a team that's like not that good. And then they struggle against a team that's legit. It's just like, no. I'm excited. No, I'm not. Oh, they could be. No, they can't. And that's literally how the off-season ASINs go. That's literally how they go. We were just like, and it's just going into the season right now. I essentially feel the exact same way that I felt about the Dallas Cowboys for the last, 5, 6 years where it's just like, and this is what I had said going when they first got Pickens and Chanheimer, etc., etc. It was just like they're going to have moments where they look absolutely awesome and they're going to blow out terrible teams. They're going to play a couple tough games against good teams and they're going to look completely outmatched against other good teams, and it's just going to be the exact same thing that we have seen year after year after year. I see no reason why that's magically going to change. I just see no reason why. None. The only way I could see that potentially changing is if in the draft this year they draft someone who just everyone is just like they just got the greatest player and he's showing it immediately. He's showing it immediately where you're just like, oh my gosh, this guy is an absolute monster. This guy. I mean, he's got to win Rookie of the Year and all first team all right, like he's getting everything. Like, is it weird to say that he's Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year? Like you're just like, this guy is unbelievable. Kind of like who they thought I was about to be when I in the beginning of the season was like, oh my gosh, this guy, is he already a number, is he already like a top 3 receiver in the NFL? And people were like, oh my, like what am I even looking at right now? And then obviously that kind of all settled down a bit, but it was just like if you can get that version of that essentially the first like handful of weeks of an IUA, but it actually goes the whole season. Again, whether it's an edge rusher, whether it's, whatever position you think the Cowboys need most, it's just like outside of that, I just see you getting an identical season that it has been over these last, however many years. And that's got to be incredibly frustrating because it just makes me think of like it's just like that modern fabric. It's like, what's the plan here? What's the plan? What are you doing to actually make a step forward? And not just marginally. You didn't make the playoffs last season. You didn't make you had free. Yeah, you made some moves and now you'll be like potentially more competent, which matters. But it's like at this point you burned that last season. So it's like, what's the plan? What's the plan? What's the plan? I'd love to know. Let me know your thoughts. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be a part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much.